Hello everyone, my name is Veritas and welcome back to Destiny. Now this is going to be this may or may not be the last one of these top lists I do before Rise of Iron. I'm still trying to work out the kinks in the next couple. I have a few more ideas, but they're really short. So I might compile them into one, kind of like multi-video thing, but that's not what you're here for. So this one, I asked Kat again, hey, what are your favorite weapons in the first 2 years of Destiny? He gave me a list of 5. I also have 5. We'll have some honorable mentions in there. The ones that didn't quite make it on the list because of how new they are, or how recently we started using them, or things like that. You'll probably get a hint throughout this video, or from the previous videos, of one that's not on the list, but is probably going to get mentioned later. But there are a couple here. The other stipulation for this list was if he said it, I didn't include it on mine because we share a lot of the same tastes. So there are some weapons on his list that I also would have put on my list, so it kind of made it more difficult for me because I took his list first. So if he has one, I'll mention it when I say the weapons and stuff, like, hey, this is one that would have been on my list too. So it kind of forced me to have to find, like, other ones that I might have forgotten about. But I ended up doing okay. But there's only, like, 2, I think, on his list, maybe 3 that, would have been on mine probably. But it's fine. I wanted to keep it top 10. It'll probably end up being, like, top 15, but oh well. So, So, this is our top 10 or 15 or whatever it ends up being. Weapons in the first 2 years of Destiny, starting off with his 5 and then my 5 and honorable mentions and things like that, or however I edit this in the future. Who knows? So, top 10 something weapons in Destiny. Number 10, Black Hammer. Black Hammer was a raid weapon that dropped off of Crota himself back in the old days of Dark Below. Actually, when we first did Crota, we did the Ethernet cable thing, and he pulled his Ethernet cable, and I sat there, he got back in the game. Now, on that first cheesy Crota kill is when my Black Hammer dropped, and I think his dropped a few weeks later. But this thing, before its nerf, was a little overpowered, I guess you could say. But this weapon, it ended up, being part of your arsenal for the longest time just because of how useful it was. But this lends itself to number 10 just because of it being awesome. And his number 5, my number 10, things like that. Moving on. Number 9, Still Piercer. So, Still Piercer is a hunter-only weapon that you get from leveling up the gunsmith reputation. I think this unlocks at level 3 with the gunsmith, if you are a hunter. But he likes the sniper rifle. He uses it constantly. This is pretty much his equip alongside, the next one on the list. But it's a nice legendary sniper rifle if you're a hunter, so hop out there and, do your gunsmith stuff if you want to use this weapon. It looks neat. I don't like Hake weapons, so I don't really care to use this one. I like my non-Hake weapons. If I can, if I can make sure I don't use Hake, I'm fine. But yeah, Still Piercer's a good sniper, good void sniper, and I don't think it ever comes off a special slot, so that's why it's number 9. So, number 8, Boolean Gemini. So Boolean Gemini would have made it to my list as well, but he said it, so I couldn't use it. Boolean Gemini is an exotic scout rifle you get from Pench Revenge by doing a ton of stuff from the Taken War quest lines and going and finding, Tetuan, things and, just all these crazy things. It's an interesting quest line, but it takes forever to complete. But this quest line, if you are a new player, I think that this weapon takes, literally forever. I think it takes a couple weeks actually to get this questline done if you are a brand new player. But this scout rifle recently did get a buff with 2.4.0, and now it has high caliber rounds, so it staggers. This thing is insane in the Crucible now, and I'm kind of worried that they might nerf it because it's basically become the new Mida. But I don't really know. I like this scout rifle. This was the weapon I used for the majority of Taken King, for the first few weeks of it at least, or the first few months of it, honestly. But this was a weapon that he and I both kind of always had on, with our selective, special and heavy weapons. But yeah, we were the Boolean boys, I guess you could say, as Backstreet Boysy as that sounds. But this weapon's cool. I like the color of the trail of the, bullet. It does have some uniqueness to it, being exotic. Some of them aren't unique. This one's more unique. The sound's nice, and I like the perks on it. It's fun. So Boolean Gemini, honorable good spot right there. A very good, a very solid choice for number 8. So moving on, number 7, Vision of Confluence. So Vision of Confluence is a raid scout rifle from Vault of Glass, the first raid Bungie launched. This is a solar scout rifle, and I love this thing. So this would have been on my list probably too, but he said it, so I couldn't use it. But the Vision of Confluence drops off of Atheon inside the Vault of Glass. This thing is awesome. You know, it's such a good scout rifle, and it definitely did carry us through a lot of year one, as a lot of the raid weapons did. So yeah, this thing, there's really nothing else I can say about it. It was the Vision of Confluence. You know, it was VOC. That was the gun people wanted to use. At least one of them. But it was such a good gun, and you know that was the scout rifle before, you know, the Boolean Gemini. That was, you know, what the scout rifles were. You know, if you wanted to use a scout rifle, you used that. So VOC, great place in our hearts, and a great place at number 7. Number 6, The Devil You Know. Again, this would have been on my list. This is actually one of the ones that I had on my original list before I asked him, but I figured I'd give it to him because he actually was the one that bought it first, and he was the one that pretty much forced me to buy one back in year one and got me into hand cannons, or at least got me away from the blue one I was using. So I was actually using a rare hand cannon alongside him using a legendary one, and he's like, dude, you just go buy the thing because I don't like using my currencies. You can usually tell if I ever go into my menu, I have thousands of currencies I don't need. But yeah, he bought this weapon and fell in love with it, and then made me buy it, and I fell in love with it. So Devil You Know is going to sit on his list as his number 1, just because it was a gun that I don't think he ever took off in year one, aside from, you know, using VOC from time to time or things like that. But Devil You Know was a catalyst among us, because it really introduced us to how good hand cannons could be. And then, you know, we pretty much used that for the entirety of year one, honestly, until it became irrelevant with the update of Taken King. We're trying to hunt for a good one to drop out of, you know, from the April update when they re-added some of the Vanguard and Crucible weapons. We're trying to get a good one to drop. I have one, but it's pretty garbage. The gameplay you're probably seeing of this is probably of the new one as well. I think I started with the old one, but the light level is just too low. But mine's pretty garbage, and the gameplay's not that long, so I'm probably looping it or something. But yeah, so that Devil You Know, good weapon, amazing hand cannon. Moving on. Number 5, Praedyth timepiece. So this was like an emergency, quick go look at the vault and see what you have kind of thing, because this would have been Devil You Know on my list. But honestly, with him taking that one and me having to go look at my vault, I forgot that I love this weapon so much. This is an arc pulse rifle that comes from the Vault of Glass raid, and if I had to pick a primary from that raid, his would have been VOC, mine would have been timepiece. Honestly, I love the name of this one. I like the lore on it, you know, the flavor text on it, and I love how it feels and handles. This is also the same archetype as, I believe, the Grasp of Malak. So it's super high fire rate, super low impact, but in year one, when you could have elemental primaries, this thing tore through Fallen because of the arc shields. And I love this weapon, and it being legendary lent itself to being good with, you know, Nightfalls and stuff. If you want to use, an arc primary, an arc special, and then a heavy like Thunderlord or something, you could do that because this was legendary. I love the handling of it. I love everything about it. The gameplay's super short though because I can't use it in like any real playlists. But that's number 5 just because it's something I forgot that I loved, and I'm glad that I could put it on the list. Number 4, No Time to Explain. I'm not going to make a shitty joke about No Time to Explain, even though I kind of just did, but No Time to Explain is my favorite pulse in the game, just because it's such a fun gun to use. Back when I originally got it, and it was, tied to the Future War Cult, my favorite faction, I was super excited that there was something in the game like this, and just with its perks it has on it, especially after the 2.4.0 update when it got Headseeker, because it refills the magazine as you get, critical hit shots, and it's magical, bullets. It doesn't come from reserve. It literally refills the magazine from space. So you have essentially infinite ammo, in a pulse rifle that does some decent impact, and I love using this thing in King's Fall and, for boss killing. But it's a primary that I don't really use much anymore, which I'm super sad about. But it is an amazing primary, and I love it. Everything about it, the sights, the little flare on the front of it, all of it. The whole thing is great. I love this pulse rifle, and I use it forever when I got it. And it's kind of fallen into the vaults and hasn't really been used recently, which is sad. But that being said, this thing, it's like the new timepiece, and I love it to death. Number 3, Baron's Ambition. Now, I mentioned in the favorite strikes video previously that there was a weapon from the Saber Strike that I fell in love with. This was that weapon, that item. The Baron's Ambition is a machine gun that comes off of killing Saber. It's a strike unique from Taken King. This thing I hunted for the longest freaking time. There will be a link in the description to the video I actually got this thing to drop in, and you can hear my very excited, almost childlike reaction to finally getting this thing to drop. But if you want to go see me, freak out like a schoolgirl, and get all super excited and then get super serious about like being, are the perks good? And if you want to go see that oh my god it dropped reaction, there's a link in the description if you want to go see it. But yeah, so this thing, I love it. I love it to death. I love the look of it. I love the feel of it. I love the damage. I love everything. This is a weapon that I can use in PvE, swap to PvP, and it's fine. I really do like it. I've kind of started using the Swarm. I have a Swarm with like rangefinder and perfect balance or something, and it's good, but the Baron's Ambition just holds a special place in my heart, and I have more fun using it. So I kind of like the Barons more, even though there might be better machine guns, but I love it to death. It looks great, it feels great, and I farmed for this thing for way too long to not have it on the number 3 spot. So there it is, number 3, Baron's Ambition. Moving on. Number 2, Mida Multitool. So I mentioned this one as well in the Strike playlist top list, but this one is more important because I got this. This was one of my first exotics I ever got to drop, and it's a really, really important weapon to me because it quickly became my favorite once I did get it to drop. And it's just been the scout rifle that I use. It was, Cat's Boolean Gemini to my Mida Multitool kind of thing, or his VOC to my Mida Multitool. If you had a primary of choice, I would always go with the Mida. That's number 1 for me regardless. And honestly, it probably would be in the number 1 slot if number 1 was not impossible to get anymore. So when we get to number 1, you'll see why it's number 1, just because of how it's impossible to get it anymore. You can't have one anymore, and very few people do have one, so it's kind of like a special thing. But yeah, so my number 1 weapon is really Mida, but you can still get a Mida, so it's the availability of the weapons kind of decided which one was number 1 and which one was number 2. But Mida, number 1 primary, I guess, kind of thing like that. But yeah, so Mida Multitool, fantastic scout rifle, love it to death. Favorite thing in the game, love it. So, honorable mention time. So, you might be thinking, hey, there are some guns on this list that I like to use that you haven't mentioned yet. And there's also a gun that you've been using in almost all of your background footage for these last couple things, and you haven't talked about it yet. And since you know that number 1 is not a primary, you might be asking, where the hell is IS Luna? Honestly, IS Luna is a fantastic gun, and it earns a spot here in the honorable mentions because the one I have is amazing. The perks on it are glorious. It has, I can switch between one perk for PvP, one perk for PvE, and, it handles gorgeous. It's a beautiful weapon. It's super fun to use, and I got really lucky with my roll on it, and it's quickly becoming one of my favorite hand cannons just because it's actually a usable hand cannon. Really only with small arms, though, because hand cannons are still weak as shit. But yeah, so that's a great weapon. Honorable mention time, perfect right there. I really wanted to mention that one because it was special. IS Luna is like a newer one that I haven't really been using all that much, for frequently and things like that. So I think there's like one more on the list for the honorable mentions, but we'll get into that one. So the other honorable mention on the list is the Grasp of Malak. I have one that I really like, and I like how it handles really well. It's a nice handling weapon. It's super popular, but I do like how it handles, and I like mine, and it's a nice new pulse rifle to use, a nice legendary pulse rifle when I'm not using No Time to Explain. So if I ever jump into the Crucible and I need like pulse rifle kills, I grab my Grasp of Malak, and I firmly grasp it, and then that's my legendary pulse. So I figured I'd mention that one alongside of the IS Luna, as those two aren't on this list, but they are both great weapons with the right rolls, and they're super fun to use, and I love them to death. So let's get into the number 1 slot since you wanted that one so bad. So let's go. Number 1. The Supremacy. So when I mentioned that you can't get this anymore, I literally meant you can't get this anymore, and you haven't been able to get it since the 3rd week of Vanilla Destiny. So the Supremacy is a legendary sniper rifle that dropped off of the Queen's Wrath event that was in the first couple weeks of Vanilla Destiny. Petrovenge came to the tower and was like, hey, Guardian, there's some bounties at the bounty tracker. Go do those, do some special story missions, kill the bosses on those story missions, and then at the end of that, you can get, I think you could actually get Ascendant material from that. Maybe not. I don't really remember, but you could get Ascendant material from it. There was a ship that would drop that I never got, and I'm super sad about it because it's one of the rarest ships in the game in terms of that, because it was only available for a week or two. Anyone that has that thing, kudos. I'm super jealous of anyone that has the Chasing Infinity ship. But so you can get a helmet or a chest piece or a class item, and then you could get this sniper rifle. And this sniper rifle is amazing. The one I have actually has the exact same perks as Fatebringer. Arc weapon, Firefly, Outlaw, and Field Scout, and this thing was the weapon I used in my special slot for literally all of year one. Pretty much, unless I was using Black Hammer or something, but this was my secondary weapon. This, alongside with Mida, and then, a machine gun or Gjallarhorn, was my weapon of choice. And just because of how rare this thing is, it had to be number one, because you can still get Mida, but you can't get a Supremacy, especially one with this good of rolls on it. So I love this thing. I love the paint job on it. I love the rarity of it, and just everything about it is amazing. And I just wanted to be this is number one because of just the circumstances around its origin and just how rare the thing is. And a side mention, back when you could duplicate bounties and stuff, and getting to tier 3 of Petrovenge back in original Queen's Wrath being nearly impossible, I actually managed to do it, and I picked up another gun, and I'm going to mention this one real quick on an aside to Supremacy. It's not really good at all, but it's called Merciless, and it's a blue hand cannon painted with the original Queen's colors, but very few people actually have any of the original rare quality Queen weapons, especially ones that weren't on the list, because when you got to rank 3, it actually unlocked a whole other section of weaponry that people never even saw. So unless you were rank 3, which was almost impossible to do without duping bounties at reset, it was super hard to get those. And in fact, honestly, I think they were impossible unless you did every single bounty every day, which was asking a lot of players. Back in the day. But the Merciless is a weird hand cannon. I use it from time to time in patrol, but it's honestly terrible. But the Supremacy, on the other hand, I will pull this thing out of the vault every couple days or so when I run around on patrol with it, because it's still an amazing weapon. And if we ever can bring back a year 1 weapon that wasn't, a year 1 weapon forward, it's gonna be Supremacy for me. So you might be thinking, hey, Fatebringer's not on the list, what the fuck? You're right. I actually don't really care about Fatebringer, and Kat honestly doesn't like it at all. We aren't really subscribed to the whole Fatebringer is Jesus weapon, even though we're both huge hand cannon users. Fatebringer just never really scratched the itch. I mean, and that's also why Gjallarhorn isn't on the list either, because, Gjallarhorn and Fatebringer were the weapons to use, and we honestly used them because they were good, but not because we liked them. I honestly don't really care for Gjallarhorn. I much prefer using a machine gun, and honestly, I don't really care for Fatebringer, even though it's amazing, but I liked, Mida more. I liked, Timepiece, and, what the hell's the other one? But VOC and things like that, and Devil I liked those weapons more than, Fatebringer, even though Fatebringer was the weapon to use in year 1, it's not our favorite. So that's why Fatebringer and Gjallarhorn aren't on the list. I also thought it would kind of be cliche to add Gjallarhorn in the number 1 slot, because I think everyone that does a top 10 list or a top list of weapons is going to have Gjallarhorn and Fatebringer on it. But yeah, so those are our top 10, 13 or so weapons in the first 2 years of Destiny. Hopefully Rise of Iron introduces some new favorites, some new fun stuff. Iron Gjallarhorn's not going to be on the list again, so spoiler for if that ever comes out. But yeah, so those are our favorite weapons in Destiny. Were your favorites mentioned on the list? Did you hate a weapon that we put on the list? Have you never even seen half of these weapons? Because some of them are kind of I don't really remember that ever existing. But yeah, so let us know in the comments below if we mentioned one you hate, if we didn't mention one you loved. Let us know your favorite weapon. And yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, I very much appreciate it. This might be the last one of these top lists. I might have one more, but if not, this is probably the last one, unless I do a bonus, a couple, we might have a top 5, and a top top 5 all in one video. So I don't really know how that's working, but this might be the last one. If it is, Rise of Iron's out soon. That'll be super exciting. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching these top 10 and 5 or whatever lists. But yes, thank you guys so much for watching, and until the next video, have a great day, everyone.